So, greetings, dear Pan Africanists, dear Africans worldwide. Welcome to another very special day today on the Pan African Daily TV. I mean, like I announced last night or in the past couple of days, we are having a very special son of Africa, a very young prince and king, but doing big things on the continent of Africa. And we think such engage people, persons, kings, kingdoms should have a space on the global platform for them to share their perspective on the development of Africa. So I want to welcome all of you that are connecting from all your destinations. I know we are going to have another powerful family day right here on the Pan African Daily TV. This king that we're having here today from the Mthethwa kingdoms, based in South Africa, we'll be connecting live to him, deals in the sector of land, economic and kingdom or royalty liberation. And that's one of the unique things because that's the first time that we're going to get engaged on this conversation. We have had kings that have been here on the Pan-African Daily TV. We have the king of Embo, King Bongane III. We've had other kings and royals that have been here. So the royal series is something that is of very special importance to us because that's the origin of what we think would be the solutions to the challenges that Africans on the continent and in the diaspora, starting from slavery and all that. And so it's a very warm thing to have another perspective and another topic that we actually will be basing a lot of series on. So, but why don't I just bring him into the house, into the family, into the community, so that we can already start to share and to begin to know who this personality is. And for some of us, I was so lucky to have been on the same position, on the same stage, or with this great King of Africa sitting here right with us in the studio, live from the kingdoms of Zulu or Kwanatal Zulu. He's going to tell us everything. So we want to know about his bloodline age. We want to know about his vision, his mission, his projects, his fight. We're fighting all the time. We cannot deny that at some point in time, Africans are fighting. So, but this time I think we're fighting a good fight. Our young royals like him, they are stepping onto the platform to address very critical situations that we have on the continent. We're talking about land. Okay. While the imperialists, or like we use that language, neocolonists, they're focusing on the agricultural aspect of land on the continent of Africa, right? But we do understand that it's not just the land surface. There's a lot of things that are going on the ground, the original, just above, underneath the land. So these are pertinent things why there always war on the continent of Africa, conflicts in Congo, conflicts in every part of Africa, because this continent is sitting on a whole lot of gold, diamond, cobalt, minerals, petrol, every sort of thing that is like the creator just gave everything to the continent of Africa. So it is very important for us to understand that land is a critical aspect. If you don't have land, you have nothing. Just imagine you're like a bird, right? You don't even have a place to land. And why we are starting with this kingdom, South Africa, because it's very important. They understand when we talk about land, because they've been in the struggle for decades of years, starting from the from the King Zulu, and I think he comes from the bloodline of So we are going to hear a lot of very empowering stuff, and we want to relate you to the importance of why the Democratic Republic of Congo is actually in a crisis for time immemorial because of land and minerals. So if we don't start the conversations on how Africans have to perceive the topic of land and what is important for us to know about land and why we must, with every might and power that we have, fight to have our land or to be a part of the land. and to make a positive change is very important. So I get back to my studio. My king, Prince Dr. Zwelakhe Mthethwa. You're welcome for the first time on the Pan African Daily TV. How are you doing?
I'm alive and well. I'm excited to be part of you in your studio, coming live from KwaZulu Natal, where we reside. And it's an honor for me to also to grace your studio and your audience throughout the world, and our Pan-Africanists in the continent and in the diaspora. You are greeted. I hope my vision, I may as well say it here. I said to myself, where actually the idea of Marcus Garvey having Africans coming back home, which was thwarted, that vision need to be relived again. Our Africans need to come back home to stabilize. We are poor without you. We need to come back. But I'm bringing a fresh solution to the issue of conflict, the issue of governance, the issue of economics, the issue of laws, because I understand the entire terrain in terms of jurisdiction and exposing your Europeans and Americans how actually they are so illegal in what they are doing in the African continent. And then that will wake up the Africans to say, let us go back to our own systems of governance, because those they don't understand. But they want us to be kept in the Roman, Dutch, and British law systems, which by law, we are not allowed to use a foreign law in a foreign land. And yet, it's only Europeans and Americans and Chinese and Middle Eastern nations who come to Africa tell us about their laws. And their laws are applicable here. But African laws are not applicable neither in America, neither in the Europe, neither in China. My question is, why actually bring their laws here? But yes,
Are you hearing me?
yes, I can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. That was like on point, and I just missed the fact that you were hanging a little bit, so we couldn't digest the continuation part. My king, this is your
Yeah.
lecture. This is your family. This is your home. This is your place. Anything that you want your children in the diaspora on the continent to know, the solutions that you are bringing on the table. I know we are not going to digest it today, but we're so happy to have you, and you are going to continue to lecture us. I mean, according, if it pleases the king to do that,
Of course.
um, to have a series with us on that, because it's not something that we can just talk about it today. Now, before we get into the deeper part, just that understanding these issues, can you just tell us a little bit about you and your bloodline, and what have you been doing? And I mean, we just want to feel right now.
Okay.
We're talking to the royals.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Zwelakhe Elijah Mthethwa. Zwelakhe, it's a Zulu name. It means landlord.
Mm,
So the topic is relevant and befitting. What I'm doing, I'm pursuing the meaning behind my name. Zwelakhe meaning the restoration of land in the continent, as if my great grandmothers were anticipating that I will live in a time where land is going to be an issue of conflict in the continent, and it is being fought by the European superpowers and the Americans and the Chinese and the Middle Eastern nations against the Africans. But this time around, the narrative is changing where Africans are coming back. They've done all of this because we were illiterate. But I'm coming from the Mthethwa tribe. The Mthethwas were a paramount kingdom before the rise of the Zulu kingdom. And our kingdom dates back to 1600 when we came from the northern part of Africa, coming down to the southern tip of Africa, and we settled in the current modern day Richards Bay coast in the northern KwaZulu Natal, which it is bordered by Delgoa Bay, the old name of Maputo, Mozambique, according to today's geographical location. And this kingdom was in the southern eastern part of Africa. And the king who was prominent at the time was King Tingswayo. Tingswayo, in literal explanation, means an exilist. He obtained that name when he fled from home due to an internal squabble where his father, King Jobe, plotted that all of his sons that have come of age should be butchered or beheaded or be killed because they were supposedly plotting to unseat him. Though he was old, King Jobe, but he wouldn't leave the throne. And so, in a polygamous family, there's always contestations, as according to houses, as to who will be the successor of our father when he is late. So it so happened that in those days, that is during the 1800s, early 1800s, it so happened that the servant of the king had a conversation in one of the household in the yard where two siblings were talking, and the only narrative or sentence they had was when he was saying it was Dana, the elder brother, and then it was Tingswayo when he was still young. His original name is Kodongwane. At home, they knew him as Kodongwane. When he came back from exile, he was then called Dingswayo, which means the self-exiled one, due to the prevailing conditions at that time. But he was the second born in his own homestead, and he was heard saying, once our father is late, I am nominating you, my elder brother, Dana, to become the successor. Now, it's a conversation of two siblings, but then the servant was passing by, whether at nighttime or during the daytime, but he then just captured that message and he reported this to the father, who was King Jobe. And King Jobe was so much annoyed of that, and then he plotted against them to ambush them before they could even actually implement the plan. And then he told his regiments to say, I want you to make sure that all the young ones are going to take the cattle for grazing and then leave all of those who have come of age, because I would like to have a ceremony with them wherein I would be announcing who will be my successor. And as they were excited that the news was about to be made, and then the opposite is true, then he said, everyone must have a cow, and then you slaughter, be merry, we eat, you drink. Then the following day, as we finish the meat that is remaining from yesterday event, and then I will be coming to make the announcement. And then the regiment were already primed and prepared to say, when I spit on the ground, then that will be a signal for you to slaughter, kill, stab all of my sons, because I don't know who plotted and how far the plan has gone. So it could be that all my siblings, all my children, my offspring, those who have come of age, are involved in this plan. And then he then decided to remove all of them. And then the only one who survived was Tingiswayo, the one whom we call Tingiswayo today, whom his name was Kotongwane. And then he jumped the fence of the kraal where they were sitting, having this ceremony, and he left with a spear wound behind him. And he fled into the fields, and he came across his sister who were fetching water, and he explained that, hey, we are being slaughtered. And the sister said, please make sure you don't come back home. I'm giving you the provision for the journey and your clothing. Go the farthest away because the regiments are still pursuing you. The message said that make sure that Tingswayo is dead, because if you don't kill him, he's gonna come back to take over the throne, as they were overhead talking. And unfortunately, then he survived, and the sister gave him all the provision. He fled from Richards Bay. You must do your own actually location. Richards Bay in KwaZulu Natal, going to the northern part of KwaZulu Natal, the far north, which is Newcastle in modern day. That journey today, we take 4 hours by car driving. But in those days, it was a big game farm, the entire province. So you can imagine there were animals. Your big five was around, but also even hostile tribes that were located in some parts of the villages in KwaZulu, who were obviously would just round you up and kill you if they suspect that you may be a threat coming to their land. So he eventually came to the Shubis, the King Pungani you're talking about that you interviewed. It is that history of those people who received King Tingswayo when he was still young with a spear wound. And then they had to test him to say, are you really from royalty? They then said, go fetch 2 lion cubs, bring them alive. If the lion does not kill you, it's a sign that you are from royalty. And he did just exactly that. As he went and then he came back with the lion cubs, because they were great healers traditionally. They then took the nails of the lion cubs and mixed with some traditional herbs to heal the wound. After healing the wound, a slaughter was done in celebration. A person of royalty has graced the Trubi tribe, which were your Pungane, Hatebe, Mtimkulu people in what we call today Newcastle, which is exactly where I am residing. This history has repeated itself 200 years later, where I'm emerging from that kind of a place. And after the slaughter, then it's an announcement. This history is now kept by the Shubis that Dingswaya once graced their land. And today, where I'm residing, it is the small enclave which is still remaining as a game park. So I just chased out zebras today out of my yard because they can even open the gate, come inside, graze right in my yard. So that's the experience we're having. So we are blessed to have that. But further on, upon the news coming that King Jobe was late, the message, according to Zulu protocol or primitive protocol, a messenger would be sent to go and inform all kings that the famous or great King Jobe is late. As he is late, it is known that his son is actually finding shelter by the Shubis. So King Pungane then actually released Dingswaya to say, you may now safely go home, but not just going home. There was a first white man who was called then Dr. Cohen, who was a military sergeant who was riding a horse carrying a gun and wanting to find his way back to Mozambique. And he was lost in the midst of KwaZulu Natal. And then they asked him to say, because we are from the north coast, you will be familiar with the geographical location of where this white man is looking for, and then take him the Ubuntu, our Ubuntu, the courtesy of the Abantu people, is that when a stranger comes looking for direction, looking for help, you can go an extra mile just taking that person to wherever they're going without expecting anything in return. As he was helping this white man just not far away from where I am, about 68 Ks, and then the Kwabe people, which are an offshoot of the Zulu kingdom today because they broke away. The Kwabe people are now an independent tribe who are related to the Zulus at the time. Kwabe and Zulu were brothers. And they saw King Tingswayo with a white, pale figure with a strange hair, just like when you take maize corn, that fluffy thing. They then said, no, this must be a skeleton thing. So you are walking with a skeleton. For that reason, they killed that white man. And things upon realizing that if they can kill this white man, then it's clear that he is also the next coming. Then he had figured out how to ride a horse, and then he hopped onto the horse and took the gun, and he found his way back to Richards Bay, and that's where his home was. By the time he came, it was around 1806. So in 1806, The father was late, and then they were so nostalgic when they see him coming because they thought he must have died either from the spear wound or the game animals that were obviously crisscrossing the land of KwaZulu as he came. So everyone was not sure how to receive him. And as he came and he circled, he found that one of his younger sibling, who was then shepherding the cattle when they were being slaughtered, he is now on the throne because the father told him to say, "You may then assume the throne because I no longer have sons who
Mm-hmm.
are successors." And he sat on the throne, and that son, that sibling was Umawewe. Mawewe was born of a maiden coming from the Ndwandwe tribe, which was a rival kingdom in KwaZulu at the time, but KwaZulu was still a small clan. So the great kingdoms in KwaZulu in 200 years ago was the Mthethwa Paramount Kingdom and the Ndwandwe Kingdom. Those two were rivals. But the Mthethwas would always defeat the King Zwide of the Ndwandwes. That's when the plot came on how to kill King Tingswayo. I'm just going fast forward. When then he was killed in 1818, others are saying 1817, but it doesn't matter, it's around that time. He was killed by being lured into coming to the Ndwandwe people because he had a fiance whom he was in love with. And now the Zwide king of the Ndwandwe, the queen mother, was a great diviner, very good with traditional medicine. She was able to own without you being accompanied by anyone. And that's how King Tingswaya then came. As he came, the plot was that he must be beheaded, and he was beheaded, and his body was thrown into the. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
please.
okay, it's fine. So his body was then thrown into a crawl and trampled upon by cattle. In those days, a cattle crawl was as big as a stadium with multiple gates for exit and entrance. So his body was disintegrated. We never buried King Tingswayo. His head was a trophy in Queen Mother Ntombasi of the Ndwandwes. She was a great diviner. She was responsible for killing over 30 kings, and our king was the 30th king who was killed in that manner. And how they lured Tingswayo was that they sent one of the virgins to visit Tingswayo first before Tingswayo being lured to come. And then they said she must then find a way to steal his dirty linen in terms of like your semen, because normally you wouldn't enter a virgin. So that semen, you just wipe it, take it with you, a cloth. We will work on a traditional muti. We will call on him in the calabash, that is Zulu witchcraft or African witchcraft. As they do whatever they're doing, you will find your way to your slaughter. But that is just part of the things that happened. But in the process of Tingsayo coming back home, he then discovered that King Shaka had actually came with his mother, Queen Nandi of the Mhlongo tribe, who was rejected by the Zulu clan to become a wife to King Senzangakhona, who is the father of King Shaka. They preferred another woman instead of King Shaka's mother, and she had to return back home. So in Zulu protocol, it is taboo if you are rejected by the in-laws. So you are not even supposed to come back home because it is a bad omen. So she eventually had to move on and go to her other fiance that she had before being pregnant with King Shaka. And he circled there for a while, but the conditions were not favorable. And she had to eventually find her way to the Mthethwas because the Mthethwas were the great kingdom because her aunt was married to the lower house of the Mthethwa household, and that man was called Umbia. Mbia was the man whom Queen Nandi came into his household because the aunt was married to that man. So that's how King Shaka, he comes as a lad to Mthethwa, and we then groomed him to join the military regiment because Mthethwa, King Tingsoi had established military regiment according to age groups. So from young age to old age, as a rite of passage, you must be part of the regiment. And those regiment have designated responsibilities. If it means fetching water, you fetch water. If it means tending the animals, you do that. If it means plantation, if it means the making of spears, if it means the manufacturing of shields, if it means manufacturing of traditional regalia, if it means all any other functions that are done in a kingdom, that's the purpose of the regiment, not just fighting wars only. So that is where Shaka he found himself in. And that is all happening in Guamteto. So we know better Shaka more than anyone in the world today who are so eloquent speaking about Shaka, but they don't know his upbringing because he grew in the Mthethwas. To the point that Shaka was not saying father to his father, Senzangakona, but he was saying father to King Tingswai of the Mthethwas. It is the Mthethwas who eventually, at the death of King Senzangakona, that we took Shaka because of a covenant made between King Senzangakona and King Swayo of the Mthethwas, that when I die, I would like my son to be my successor, but I'm aware that I rejected my son and his mother, so you may be angry with me, but please do the honors because you are the great king at that time. And King Swayo did just exactly that. In 1816, the whole world got to know that there was a man called King Shaka who was installed not by the Zulu people, was installed by the Mthethwa people. And
Mm.
as from then, 1816 up till today, 200 years later, when you see the Zulu kingdom, you are seeing the legacy of the Mthethwas initiated by King Tingsfai, whom, as I'm standing today, I'm restoring that kind of household.
Whew. This is it. Now, people, we get ready. We get ready. We get ready. We get ready. I mean, we are approaching that period of who Africa is. You can hear it. I mean, it's like I'm in a movie. I don't know how you are watching. It's like it's in a movie where even the terminologies that you use, they were fetching water, and
Mm,
then they were you could just see the everything. Us like the village girls, we're so privileged because when you're talking, my king, I see everything. I see myself. I see the whole scenery, and that's the origin. So
mm,
yesterday when we talked about, we are going to walk you through the African spirituality. I'm talking to the
mm,
audience. This is
mm,
exactly what I want to introduce you to get a taste of when we talk about African spirituality. What does it mean? The signs,
mm,
the words,
mm,
the
mm,
connotations, the
mm,
mentality, the wars that
mm,
were fought before we even heard about anything, the tribes and the
mm,
different migration and everything. That's all about the history of who we were, ancient Africa. Now,
mm,
thank you so very much, my king. I want to come back now to the subject matter of 200 years. You're sitting on the bloodline of Shaka Zulu. And that was not initially the origin or the original king because they rejected him and his mother, as you said, but that was installed by the Mthethwa kingdoms, royals. And 200 years after that, history has repeated to bring the original bloodline on back on the throne to lead the people. So it's like you
mm.
came and then you begin to understand the logic with land. So when was the
Yes.
period that you started revolting and saying, this is our land, this land belongs to us, this is the way we have to go about it? What is it that you came now in this new version of your ancestors? What are you bringing?
Uh, I'm bringing a fresh mindset altogether in terms of what we should be doing. and the manner in which we should approach politics, global politics, because I've studied 200 years of what happened and how your Vasco da Gama came in 1498, coming into our shores from Portugal, and after him, Jan van Riebeeck in 1652. By that time, we were already settled in our lands. And these people, I can give context now that they were spies if we were to use the intelligence language of today, because in their journals, you find that they are describing everything that they find about our kingdoms, what is happening. So they are spying, and then they go back to tell their forebears or their authorities, which is the European kings, to say, this is what we've discovered, and these are the things that we are finding in our African continent, and we've discovered that this is a rich land. And now we have then discovered that also in 1884 to 1885, there was a Berlin conference hosted by the German Kaiser and King Leopold of Belgium, who called all the authorities of Europe to say to them, hey, we've got an opportunity here. The entire continent of Africa is now our platform where we can loot every mineral to improve our conditions as Europe. Because it has it has good climatic condition and all of that. At that time, our African kings were in charge of their land, and then these guys, they then said, let's divide Africa according to all the colonial powers around the world. So everyone would come to Africa as a colony of exploitation, as a colony of settlement, as a colony of contestation. Like in your country, Cameroon, you have two authorities. You've got Cameroon, who are French speaking, and you've got Cameroonians who are English speaking. That is a typical example of a colony of contestation, which means France came and actually planted their flag to say, now this is becoming our enclave. And Britain also came in half of Cameroon and said, this is also our enclave. And then they had to sort their matters to ensure that how do they collaborate in enslaving the Cameroon people. Now, this meeting is discussing to say, let's develop policies and systems and structures on how we will colonize the entire continent and to better the lives of the Europeans. And in that meeting, America was present. Russia was also present. So don't be fooled by the fact that now they are leaning towards Africa. They are so loving. But when we go to the records, they are part of the people who were in the meeting. These records, the minutes of that meeting, are still running the entire world till today. It's only us who are always being told to have a 5-year cycle of governance, but the European superpowers, they teach their kids to say, this is how we colonize Africa, and this is how you can recolonize Africa with new generation, but continuing with the agenda of their forefathers. In Africa, the opposite is true. We castrated, we dismantled, we destroyed the entire continental structure of governance through kingdoms, and we instituted the democratic era, which that is not according to the context of the African democratic principle, but according to the stolen philosophy of the Greek philosophers who started in Egypt, and then they went back to perfect and fine-tune the Plutos, the Aristotles, and Socrates. Those philosophers, those principles never worked in Greece in their time. 500 years ago, somebody somehow is reviving the democratic principle and is feeding it to us to say this is how we should run things, and that is wrong. So I'm bringing a fresh perspective, having traveled to Europe, having seen how Europe is actually structured, how it colonized us, how Patrice Lumumba was dipped into acid and only his tooth survived, and it is held by a Belgian old man. All of that, these are things that we need to actually reflect on. But as we reflect, I want to put it straight to Africans. Don't ever think that the democratic systems and institutions and the multilateral institutions are there for your benefit. Forget. Be independent. philosophy, the idea from Kwame Nkrumah in 1957 up until Mandela, all that was a stage managed process. It is the international bankers who said, let us stage a puppet regime in the form of independence of Africa, but take Africans that whom we have enslaved in the diaspora, but bring them back home as if now they are repentant, they are educated, but the philosophy is that let's westernize Africans so that their thinking is no longer the same as that of their forefathers who were kings, who were fighting for land, who are fighting for the restoration of kingdom. They even infused the mentality that you must destroy kingdom and only implement democratic systems, which democratic systems only work to serve the interests of the colonial master. Check in America, blacks are a minority, so they cannot rule according to the democratic principle. But check in South Africa, whites are a minority in South Africa, but the whites are controlling the blacks who are a majority. Now, my question, if you think democracy is the way to go, why is it that it has got eyes? When whites are in abundance, it says they must rule. When whites are in minority, it still continues to say they must rule. In South Africa, we have this normal where the constitution is saying protection of the property of minority instead of it protecting the majority. And the majority suffered at the hands of the minority, but still today, 30 years later, since democracy in 94, whites have benefited more during the era of a black man ruling South Africa more than during their era of democracy and British colonialism. So that for me is madness. So which means the education system is very wrong, and the visions, all of our independent presidents from Kwame Nkrumah, they were coming from Europe. So they are thinking, when they think that they are government, they are learned, they are not thinking African, they are thinking European. And they think they can implement European, but of course, that was the plan anyway. And that plan didn't allow them to come up with something new. They said, continue from where we ended. And that's the problem, because you can't improve on somebody else's intellectual property. This system of governance we are having is not our origin from Africa, but they don't want the kingdoms. Today, kingdoms are beggars. Kingdoms have been relegated from all this political era. You will never then be able to solve the problem of DRC. The problem of DRC is a jurisdictional issue where you allow Europeans to dictate terms to you using their judicial system, which by law you cannot implement, use a foreign law in a foreign land. It's only Africans that are not allowed to practice native law in Germany, in Belgium, in Britain. But British, they are able to implement British, German, Portugal, Spanish ideas and laws, and even setting up magistrate district offices to rule and run and solve our conflict. How do you solve a conflict using a foreign language? How do you resolve a conflict using a foreign law? Whom are you pleasing there? You need to go back and undo and detox all of that. But we are so intertwined, we are led by guys that were taken by the slave master. That's why we are here. And I'm bringing that, but as a continuation of a lineage of kings in a modern day who are learned, who are smarter and wiser. But this time we're saying we need to restore that which is our own.
Makes a lot of sense. Going back. Going back. Thank you so very much, King. I can see you feel the vibe. You see, it's like everybody is charged up on this. You said something that, and I just want us to, because we're relating it to the situation in Congo, which we hear that is constantly deteriorating. But then when we look at the historical facts of that which is happening in Congo, it is accordingly to the president, or accordingly to what we gathering from from the conflict. This is a conflict that resulted because of the Hutus and the Tutsis, bloodiest genocidal that happened in Rwanda, and a genocide which the world has promised that it will never see the face of something like that happen again anywhere in the world, not just on the continent of Africa. And this global power sat and said, this will never happen because that was the bloodiest ever genocide committed in world history. Okay. Now, 1996, coming down to that period, the Hutus or the Tutsis just flee this conflict in Democratic Republic of Congo, which basically are the same people, as a matter of fact. These are brothers and sisters. You look at the boundaries and you look at the culture, you look at everything. These are one people. Okay. Now, the president of Rwanda is saying which they called the M23, is saying, yeah, he is here to restore his people because they were the minority. They're the minority, which is the clan of which he belongs to. They're the minority. So he wants
Yes.
to the rights of the minority. And that's why they're fighting. Because, like, remember, like you talked about the brothers that left, and each person had its own. Now, like part of it's just like what is happening in Southern Cameroons. Part of yours left and went to another. And then now you, because you're the president, you want to defend their right in the DRC. So, and it's a conflict that has left, Professor James said it yesterday, more than 6 million people dead, and it's continuing. Now, but everything, like you said, it's been kind of like politicized. Everything is coming back now to the situation of the European or the superpowers. America is giving sanctions, and South Africa is even also saying now we have to defend also the minority rights of the DRC. Now, how does this combine the political agenda? Because everything that everybody sees now, like, no, it's not even about that. It's about the minerals. It's about piloting. It's about looting the continent. And but in the real context, we're talking about Rwanda and DRC. And you're talking about the fact that how can a foreign law be implemented? So in other words, like, the audience is like, what is America's hand doing in DRC and Congo when two brothers are fighting? But if they can't solve the problem because there's no mutual understanding, there will never be peace in Congo. At least there has to be an international body and organization now that are saying we are taking responsibility to find out in order to save the global peace, because war in DRC is war on the entire continent and its tribe and its kingdoms. Am I correct? What is the issue? What should Africans, I'm not saying Congolese, what should Africans know? And it's a solution to the conflict that we are seeing. It's a bloody conflict. Everything is happening in our daylight. It's not like history of 18 something. Africans don't even know how to even react. Young people are busy now, distracted with all other things that nobody's even posting about what is actually going on in Congo now. And that's not only Congo. It is happening in Southern Cameroon's Amazonia, as they call it. It is happening in Niger. It is happening in Sudan. It is happening in the Gambia. It is happening, like, what kind of a period do we find ourselves like? What is the way forward? The royals should give us a solution or a roadmap.
It's simple. This is what we need to do. The land of Africa, it is a jurisdiction of African kings. And no form of democracy, those who claim democratic institutions are a solution, the very concept of democracy, they didn't know it some time back, not long ago. They studied everything from Africa. If you follow the Egyptian history and the Alkebulan history, everyone studied here. Your Plutos, your geometry, your science, your medicine, all what now Europe and America and China and Middle East are claiming that it is their actually innovation. It is an innovation that came from Africa, repackaged, into becoming a new thing, because at that time, yes, in Mali, we started writing on the scrolls in the University of Mali, but they then went back to also perfect the art of writing and writing in a different format, not in a format of the scrolls as we know it in Mali. And now they then come up, part of the staging of the Berlin Conference was to change the culture of the people of Africa, change the language of the people of Africa, and change the lifestyle according to their colonial master. So if you are colonized by French, you must drink tea like the French, you must enjoy whatever the French are enjoying, the French cuisine, and you even think that you are more of a French than being more of a Bantu from Africa. And that is a problem. So the solution here, we are in a time of a reset. The same
Mm,
reset that they've just done through COVID. It's a reset that the African continent need to do. And what is the reset? Restoration of African kingdoms. In Cape Town, I met the descendants of Mansa Musa,
mm,
which was the greatest kingdom wherein the greatest, richest man ever on earth, and no one has beat his record, came from the Mali kingdom. I said to them, let's collaborate to make sure we restore the might of the African kingdoms. Why are we doing that? You cannot solve the DRC problem while you, okay, this is it. How do you say you want to liberate Africans, but we are losing the language of the slave master? Do you think the product of that liberation will be that of Africans or will be that of European superpowers? Because they're infusing ideas of what you must tell, they're infusing you things that are selfish. The war there is a continuation of the scramble of Africa. I would
mm,
like all African schools to prescribe the book called The Scramble of Africa so that you can teach. That book is going to tell the African child what was done on them when the European superpowers, it was European kings who came and destroyed the African kings by sending their own explorers. And then they use all manner of cultural, religious activities to lull and numb anything that was of African so that they can take over. Now, if you want to solve this, you are not going to solve it even through these political scientists who are African studied in Harvard. I don't care where they studied in Oxford. It's all they are studying the slave master's language. And you cannot come with that and bring it here. Any any leader from Africa who does not speak of the kingdoms that were destroyed, that they must be restored, that person is an agent of the same colonial master. Finish. Whether it's harsh of me to say that, I must say it so that I can sleep well and you can actually also be clear. This thing of us studying in Germany, studying in Britain, studying in America, studying in all of this, and you think that can make you an elite. Just go and check how many of us who studied abroad, who came back with their studies from abroad and liberated Africans. How many years? Kwame Nkrumah was educated. Marcus Garvey was actually exposed and learned. All of them, they failed. If you check all of the supposed independent leaders, they would die way before they can even finish their term of office. Why? Because they have reneged on the terms of engagement that if we make you the first black president in your country, then you backstab us by taking the minerals, by taking the infrastructure, all the things that we've built, we kill you. That's how Kwame Nkrumah was killed. That's how Patrice Lumumba was killed. Why? Any black person who was studied in abroad, and then you come back, you turn back from the education and the culture of your master, and you now start to infuse your mind with that of Africans, you die. It's still happening today. The current president of all of the entire continent of Africa cannot rule Africa. Why? Because they are ruling it on the basis of the terms of engagement established in the Berlin Conference. They tell you these are non-negotiables. These ones we cannot change. So we are just allowing you to sit on that seat. In Nigeria, all the refineries of oil that are there, they've taken over the country as Nigerians, but they are told, all those presidents, to say, never touch the refineries. Those refineries are reserved for British companies to come and explore further that oil and actually sell it to the world. And actually, there is also a very stupid rule that says all African countries cannot plant any food, cannot manufacture anything for their own use. They must manufacture for the consumption of the first world countries. Now, that sounds like a colony of exploitation in modern day, where you still have to take over all your minerals, all your raw materials, to take it to the people who are already established. Why are you taking it there? It's because it is a generational wealth for the Europeans and the Americans and the Chinese and the Middle Eastern people, but not for the generation of Africans. In Africa, it must be a perpetuation of slavery and caste and suffering and poverty. This is stage managed by your IMF, your United Nations, and all multilateral institutions. Never trust any of that. I don't care even if our president is sitting there. They are sitting there, they are treated as boys. And that is the problem. So let's make sure that we must detox. There are those who are like me. I took a conscious decision not to join the system because it is polluted. Because at the moment you go join the system and then you come out, you say something different, they then muzzle you or shut you down. So what you do, don't even start. But it's fine. We will manage the situation. We're not throwing the child with bathwater. I'm looking for those who set themselves apart to restore this vision. And it's not going to be done by those who have contaminated themselves with the Europeans, the French, the Germans, and all of that, in the act of them being prepared to become future leaders. As we speak, Europe is busy grooming Africans, but who are westernized to advance the Western agenda in the African continent at the expense of their own people. That's what is happening. So I'm not pleased by those who got an opportunity to study there, because where will you use those studies? Because those studies, they only good for you to become a slave, a worker, a professional slave. Today, Africans, they taking themselves to Europe, not because somebody is enslaving them mentally, culturally, historically, in their loins when their mothers carried them to this world of slavery. They cannot do anything but also to take themselves there. So they are saying now, the legacy of slavery, it is when you have untangled Africans to say, we are no longer enslaving you, but you will take yourself to the Western world without being told by anyone. And why? Because psychologically, genetically, it is in your veins that you need to go there instead of remaining here. But they also create these wars. These wars are created by the very same holier than thou president of America, the French president, the British president, the Russian president. All of these superpowers are the ones who have their own extension, who start the wars against the African leaders who are Afrocentric and Pan-Africanist in their thinking to help their people, and they make sure you kill those and raise an opposition against that president so that there's no continuation of an African agenda. So you cannot fulfill an African agenda using AU structures. Who proposed those? Because all the guys who were there in 1963 when AU was formed, it was guys that were coming from Europe who had studied there and then parachuted to say, let's form an organization of African unity. But it is all guys that are learned. I didn't see kings being invited into these platforms. And these guys are reporting back to the European superpowers, and their spies are always here. Your CIA intelligence, they are hovering around the African countries to pick up intelligence of who is doing what in the form of the military regiment. And all our military, all of us African countries, is being trained by the British military, by the American military, by the Russian military. What do you expect? What is it that you can then do beyond your colonial master having trained you? You are just their student. And anything you do, it is a breach of contract and agreement. So anything that associates us with these institutions and structures is still entangling us, and we'll find ourselves in that. Unfortunately, it is the agenda that most of the learned Africans don't want to hear, the restoration of African kingdom, because within the African kingdom, there is a lifestyle, there is a economy, there is governance. Go and listen to Professor Henry Clark from the US. He's late now. But he's the one who narrates for you to say, King Jobe, we're governors. King Tingswayo, we're governors. And those are my people. They are narrated not by me, by somebody in the US, a learned fellow from Africa. And then, but that is not being advanced because it is not good for the business of the Western colonial masters. Now, we need to detox the education that we've learned from our Western powers and begin to, when you finish studying the Western, go and study the African. And not just by books. Go and have practical application of what happened in Africa. There are still a remnant of those who still live according to the manner in which you used to live. So we need to regroup. The agenda of DRC cannot be discussed the manner in which it is being discussed. Unfortunately, I am raising a vote of no confidence to any agreement, to any structure. You can continue using them, but I'm not a fool. Over 24 years, we are going back and forth, trying to appease, but we never come to an end because America has a permanent interest in countries that have mineral reserve and anything that is a resource. When I say permanent interest, it means I'm not your friend, but I'm here for your oil. I'm here for your minerals. I'm here for anything that may be good for their business. And that business is not just for the state, for individual superpowers, the guys who've got money. Okay, how do you like it when you hear the father of the Rothschild saying, I don't care who runs the world, but whoever that is, I will control him? Isn't that exactly what is happening here? Every president in Africa has a problem because the Rothschild, with their extension of structures and institutions, those are the guys who established the sausage system of exchanging money during the warring time in France and England. And they said, we can transfer your money to wherever that you want to. They are the same guys who also communicated lies to say England was being defeated by the French. And then the communication comes later to say, no, the opposite is true. It's the other guys who are winning. By that time, all the shares in the England Reserve Bank had collapsed, and the Rothschild came and harvested all the shares for nothing. Because that was the plan, to control the financial institution. African kings need to come up with their currency. And we are living in a digital era where we can create our own currency. Because in South Africa, you cannot even, we are running the country, but the rand was introduced by the Afrikaners. It was not introduced by the ANC. Same applies with the other African countries. So which means we don't control the rand. We don't control the rand. We also don't control the Reserve Bank. Rothschild is controlling the Reserve Bank, the Reserve Bank through the Ruperts and the Oppenheimers in South Africa. So you think the president will be able to run the country and fulfill the national agenda when he doesn't have control of the printing of the rand in South Africa? It is done by a private company. Now, you think that you will win. So even the very current regime structures are so wrong. But you are stuck to them. We need to change. And how do you change? Go back to that which you were. I don't care how hard and how harsh it may sound. If you want to continue, you can just continue, but you will be living like a dog chained, and you can go only as far as the chain allows you. So we need to change. It's that simple, and it is that difficult.
Hmm. So, like, we need to go back to the African indigenous knowledge, wisdom, culture, spirituality, everything. How?
Yes.
We've been
Oh,
living in the situation where we have a combined system right now,
mhm.
and I think that's some of the challenges that when Africans hear that we need to go back to the way we used to live, they feel like, how?
Okay. Let me tell you. Let's help you. Let's help you.
Hmm.
Um, Today, let's look at economics. The economics of food. We now live in the time whereby we are told we need to eat green food, green lifestyle. Everything is green. But who is the first person to actually eat green vegetables, eating healthy? The healthy lifestyle you are telling us about is what Africans were doing anyway. We know that. Two, pharmaceutical companies. The medicine that you are consuming is taken from the indigenous plants which are still available in Africa, but because you are stuck with the pharmaceutical system of Western medicine, then you prefer to consume that. But what you don't realize, you are a clientele. But you are also addicting yourself with products and properties of the medicine which were put deliberately there to be toxic and to kill certain organs in the body. These are harsh truths, but at home you can go and plant corn. It will grow right in my yard. Corn. This is the culture of us as Zulus, which we used to practice. We call it a culture of Ilima. Ilima is a voluntary service which we do as a community collectively when it is a planting season. We jointly join forces because we need manpower to go into the fields. We
Hmm.
all plant. Why are we all going to plant? So that when the harvest come, we can apportion portions of our rations in each and every household to have enough for the day, to have
Hmm.
enough for a season. There is no money market system there. There is no monetary economy there. Ubuntu, humanity, that you look after the interest of your own neighbor. That's why in our time we didn't have orphans, we didn't have child-headed families, because it was a principle that when the heads of that family have died, those children are then attached to another a family unit within the bloodline, so that those children, they have security of a home, security of parenthood, security of being fed until they come of age. We dropped our own practice and culture and values for the Western. The Western, the reason why they made us to stop that practice is because when they look at us, they say, what a business. And that business, it's a sole propriety. It's one man from Europe looking at you, seeing that you don't have shoes on your feet. They say, what a shoe business I can establish. And then charge every African 5 rand, 2 rand just to manufacture shoes. And then as they wear those shoes, they then increase the price to say, now that shoe is no longer 2 rand, it is now 5 rand, it is now 10 rand, it is now 20 rand, it is now 100 rand, it is now 1,000 rand. And that's as they do that, they are benefiting financially. It is Africans alone who don't realize that the poverty of the African is business to the American, to the Chinese, to the British, to the Middle Eastern people. Why can't we think the same way? And in economics, I was taught to have, you start by having a closed economy first before you become an open economy. Let me share the advantages of a closed economy. A closed economy, it is when a community living in a particular jurisdiction, they understand their needs. Like where I am in Utrecht, I eat bread in the morning, I eat pap by midday, and I also eat pap in the evening. So my meal, my stable meal is established, is balanced until I'm this age. I've been eating these things. But Africans don't see value in now controlling the mill that produces the flour, the barley, and then they don't see a need of controlling corn plantation, which we will go and grind the maize and into flour, into meal, which we will consume and store it in the storehouse enough for a season until the next season. This was a lifestyle we were living. Why have we become so accustomed to a Western system of market economy that tells you you no longer have to produce bread in your kitchen, you must go and buy it from Spar? And as you buy it from Spar, you are now indebted to a monetary system that will need you to have money before you can spend. But you've got brains, you've got water, you've got sand, you've got space enough. Me, I'm staying in a very spacious yard here. You can plant all the things that you consume. Unfortunately, it sounds like difficult, but start somewhere, because as you continue with this culture, it never ends. It entangles you. In South Africa, we have a very bad experience now. We have our foreign brothers who come here and running tuck shop. Those are small shops that you find in each and every street. In the food that we are consuming, they're putting toxins in it. And we consume it. It's even like that. They also bringing food, groceries that have long sell by date expired, and we consume that. It is our fault that we allowed a system that is foreign to us and we thought we can make it customized to Zulus. Unfortunately, you are not. The more you think you are westernized, is the more Westerns are seeing a slave in you, even when you are educated and you are a professional.
Bam.
So, which means we have to start somewhere. To you, because that question, I think it comes from you, because you're there in German and you think that you don't have access to land and the Germans won't allow you to have so much land space. Come to KwaZulu. In KwaZulu, at least we have 2.8 million hectares of land. In that 2.8 million hectares of land, nothing is being done because we don't have the factors of production. In economics, you need four things: factors of production: land, buildings, owners, equity, and labor. Those things should be controlled by any individual. If you don't have them, you can have a barter trade, you exchange. But today we are being moved as commodities of labor for white people, and in South Africa it's taboo. How possible that Rupert and Oppenheimer, they're controlling South African economy from 1988, they were toppling the South African economy. In 2024 February, if you Google Rupert and Oppenheimer, they're still toppling. So that is an insult to the ANC that from 94 to 2024, they've been doing nothing to change the lives of black people, especially economical, because the same man in 1988 who was controlling economy is still the same man. What were you doing from 94 to 2024? Doing nothing. In fact, even the agenda of parliament, which they are advancing, it is dictated to by Rupert and Oppenheimer. So that is exactly what is happening. Let's look at the Francophone countries in the continent. They are still contributing half of their gross national production to France. Why? So that is professional slavery. When you think that a black man is the president of a French colony, yet he is subscribing to the terms of engagement that said, thou shalt not touch our infrastructure, thou shalt not sell all the reserves of minerals that are in that country because they are a possession of the French, who is your colonial master. As a result, France is making trillions of dollars to Francophone colonies. Today, they are still paying those monies there. And when they want to fight, all the military of the Francophone countries are trained by France. It is a restraining clause which they signed up for. So this all independence, it is actually nonsense. I'm insulting it because behind it was layered by terms of engagement that were still tying us, and you think that we are free. We are not free even today. But you will never be free as long as you use the lenses and the language of the colonial master and the institution, which they don't allow you to improve. Look at this. What laws are you using to implement the agenda of development in the African countries? You're still using French laws. You are using British laws, Roman, Dutch, and British law. Portuguese laws in a colony of Africa, and they laugh at us. They say, you have been free over 50 years. When you look at the countries like Ghana, but there is no change. You will never see change. You are successful failures as African president because they said, let's stage puppet regimes. So you believe Kwame Nkrumah, you believe Mandela. What you didn't realize, all of them are staged managed, and they are puppets according to the international bankers. If you want the truth of it, go and ask the Rothschild, go ask the JP Morgans, go just ask the Rockefellers. In 1903 in America, Rockefeller and Gates, they said, we don't want a society of thinkers. We want a society of workers. No wonder we are all working, and we're working for them. And we cannot think through. This type of education does not enable you to be able to think on your own. And then try to think outside the box of what you were taught in school. You are rendered as null and void, and they can even retrieve your degrees, because you are now starting to think something foreign towards what your slave master has taught you. It's that simple, and it's that difficult. Are you paralyzed? Because I'm expecting some response so that we continue, but I see you just frozen. So I don't know. But these are harsh truths that we have to accept. We need to change. Unfortunately, that change must not be dictated to by the Westerners. Even today in the political parties, it's so painful. Black people, a mushrooming of political parties that are claiming to be standing for a change in this African continent, only to find that they are being financed by the same white people, even here in South Africa. So when you see we have 300 plus political parties that are contesting these elections in May, all of them 300. Do you think that they are going to make anything to? No. What is happening? The white people are only 8%. So even if they can all vote for one party, they cannot unseat the black people. So what they're doing, they're investing in black people who will pretend to be working with us, the majority black, whereas they will take their vote and give to the Democratic Alliance, which is the white party, advancing white interests. Look how bad that is. You vote for a white party only to advance the interests of white people, which is maintenance of the status quo. They don't want the land to be returned. Unfortunately, we have won the case against the Roman, Dutch, and British law. They may not be talking about it, but we have it at our disposal because we are studious. And that is what we must implement. So South Africa in the kingdoms must be a case study for all African countries in restoration of kingdom, because we've got a law which is the current slave master's law, which we have won. Not because we love it, but they must pay us first for 112 years, because the law was promulgated on the 19th of June in 1913. And this judgment was passed in 2011, March. That is 98 years later. So justice was served, but nobody is interested to implement it because Rupert and Oppenheimer are controlling everything that moves in South Africa. And you think our president is running the country. They are running it. If I want to prove that, go back to 1966. On the 6th of September, Verwoerd, who was the Prime Minister of South Africa at the time, was killed in Parliament Step by its offenders, a Mozambican national. And the reason was that he was about to present a report in Parliament from Professor Hawke in the University of Pretoria, which report said we need to unbundle the South African economy according to racial groups. Anton Rupert and Oppenheimer, Harry, didn't want that, and they plotted the killing of that president. And they even plotted who will be the successor of Verwoerd. It was B.J. Foster. And so you thought that the apartheid National Party actually decided B.J. Foster to succeed. Verwoerd, no, it was plotted by the same guy. Why? They were protecting their interest. The same report, which was never read on the 6th of September 1966, was given to Mandela. to say, Mandela, yes, you'll become the first president, but when you come out, you don't touch our minerals, you don't touch our property, you don't touch anything of ours. We'll just release you to go and sit in parliament and become the face of government, but we will control the economy. So when a black man is in charge, the economy is taken out of the state. But when a white man is in charge, everything, the economy and the politics are rendered in a central point. That's interesting. And we don't see that. So we thought Mandela was liberating us. But if Mandela was in jail by 1988, 2 years before he comes out in 1990, the assumption is that Mandela has defeated the Oppenheimer Empire. That's why we've got a book called South Africa Incorporated Oppenheimer Empire in 1988. It was saying Oppenheimer is owning 6,000 companies in South Africa, which was almost the entire South African economy, owning minority shares in all of those companies. So he doesn't appear as the one because that would be rendered as monopoly. So he gives to other faces, but he controls everything, not just 6,000 companies, but he controls also in the entire continent of Africa, and in 6 continents he's in charge. Why? How is he achieving this? He is a proxy and Rupert of the British government and the Rothschild. The Rothschild, they always appoint proxies in countries who will become the top people. They elevate their status, and then those people, they run the errands for the Rothschild community. In South Africa, that's exactly what happened. So the economy was left in the hands of white. Mandela took this. And you ask yourself, Mandela, such a vibrant leader, why would you actually settle for mediocre achievement? He saw how Verwoerd was killed, and he know who killed him. He's the same man who are negotiating with him when he came out of jail. And it's the same people. Okay, if you think that I'm sucking up things, go to 1994 USA Today front page on the 20th of June. The front page was saying, Oppenheimer is saying, I am the engine behind the victory of the ANC. Yet in South Africa, we're celebrating that Mandela is the victor. Mandela is the one who liberated us. Oppenheimer tells the international community that he is the one. Why? Because its interest will be better served through Mandela. But I love this one. In the 50s, Mandela was still in the Youth League at the time. He was told by the Oppenheimer to say, go and scoop up your image and go to my tailor just to fix you some nice suit so that you look good. Now, in the 50s, Mandela wearing suit given by Oppenheimer. How interesting that in 1994, the same Oppenheimer is coming to say he's the victor behind, he is winning and ruling South Africa and introducing the democratic dispensation. After all, it was never the plan of the kings in 1912 when ANC was formed that we were fighting for democracy or we were fighting to vote. But Mandela settled for the vote in 1994 instead of economy. Yet the first president of the ANC, Langalibalele Dube, in 1912 was fighting for land. That agenda of fighting for land was lost in the 94 years of struggle. And Mandela comes as a typical child of the king who was trained by the Westerners to say, let's take the children of the king to westernize their thinking and education so that when they come into power, they will think like Westerners instead of speaking like their fathers. And that's exactly what Mandela did. In the Codesa talk, he doesn't invite kings. Kings were the founders of the same party and pastors. He sits with his fellow comrade and addressed the white man. And unfortunately, they failed to tell the white men to say, we are fighting for land, and they settled for a vote. A vote? Did we lose a vote or did we lose a land? We lost the land, but we obtained a vote. South Africans have been voting and they're getting nothing. What they did, they took all the comrades, they incorporated in their company so that they become a black shield for white companies, so that when you do an audit, you find a black man owning that company, whereas it is a white man who's remote controlling that black person. And you think then it's a black success, whereas it is a stage managed thing. And they borrow these black superpowers, their balance sheet, so that they show the world that they've got money, whereas they are paying a debt to a white man. So you cannot improve on this system. It is actually working against you. They always set up forums of legal minds to improve on how to treat the blacks in modern day, and the blacks are falling for that. They always want to find one black person whom they can elevate above all black so that that person will be said to become a future leader, and they give that person money to control every one of us. South Africa, as we speak, it is registered as a company in the US and in Britain. Why? Because of Anglo America. Anglo means England, America, United States of America. That company is the one that brought money to start the mining era here in South Africa through the proxy of Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer is dating back to 3 generations. Ernest Oppenheimer in 1917 established Anglo America, and then Harry Oppenheimer took over after Ernest died in 1957, and then after that, Nicky Oppenheimer is the one now still surviving. How can one family from 1917 up till today, they're still controlling us, and you find that no man, and it's okay? No man. Please try somewhere else. We are not fools.
I don't want to be frozen again. You're talking my you I mean, I experienced you already. That's why I should have been shocked. I would have really been shocked because but I already experienced this energy here. This is just a little bit what we were dished on. For the first time, I was speechless. So like we're spinning around the whole thing. At the end of the day, Africans are still asking. So yes, we had all these inventions. We had everything. We were the greatest. Mansa Musa was the richest. And then automatically now we're the poorest, as I can say, or whatever. Now, the issue is land. Your baby is land as a royal. Of course, we do know that the royals are the indigenous owners of the continent, because before the colonial rules came, we were fonts and kings and queens. That's who we were. And so when they brought this other energy into bringing the political system, actually is the baby of the West. Because then they taught our kings, and our kings would implement in their communities. And so, the Uganda, because the kings were the one ruling, they control the people, they control the votes, they control the palace. And so, like, the system of calling people at the palace and saying this, and Africans, we were really, from ancient time, obedient. People didn't question the king. People didn't disagree. Like, the king is saying this, how has it become this? That's kind of humility, hierarchy, like, our king, they trusted in their kings. And this other kings that were now hijacked and then, bought over. Apparently, from what the research and the stories as we keep digging and all the facts that are coming up, were the same people that were engaged in the trade, whatever trade they were doing, right? So that essence of the betrayer of those fake lining. That's why I first of all asked about your bloodline, because now we're beginning to understand that when we say kings and kingdoms, there are original kingdoms and there are fake kingdoms. They're colonial kingdoms and they're the bloodlines of the real kingdoms, like the Shaka Zulus. Why did they have to fight so long? Because they were of the original bloodline. The ones in Namibia, the ones in Cameroon, the ones in everywhere, the kings that were murdered were the kings that were being resistant. They were resisting, right? And then now the non-resistance on, like you see the Mumbutus and the ones that are always playing around, where the ones apparently, I mean, to our understanding, I want to understand it from a royal perspective. This is what we know. So what would change now? And then please, I want you to still tell me that hectare of land that you say we have in KwaZulu. How are we going to get access to that? What does it take for us to get? Because yes, we're coming back, as you said. Yeah, even though you say, yeah, we're here and but we are coming back, and we want to know. And my question about these lands, I'm always saying, where is my father's land? We were abdicated. We were whatever business you did and the generations did. You are a royal, you are a king. I would always ask this question to all my royals, like, where is my father's land? Before my father was taken, before he was sold, or before he was abdicated, my father had land. Now the king is saying we have a whole hectare of land. Please begin to tell us how we're going to get the portions of land. Are we going to buy it? Then we start understanding we have to buy the land. And is the king saying no, whole kingdom and land here? Bring what you want to bring apart from the mentality, keep it there, or bring the good ones and then the bad ones, leave it there. So we want to know, where's our land? How do you see the us? How are we going to get access to that land? You are the prince, crown prince of the Mthethwas, of a whole generational kingdom. Yes, like you said, rightly said, every other kingdom would be restored from this example that we're going through. Now, we don't want to discuss any other thing that they do to us. Now, we at you are telling us you have land. Let's deal with what we have.
Okay.
Because you're the judge, you studied that, you went extra miles to study the law to be able to defeat the colonial law so that Africa can get its land back. Am I correct?
Yes.
That's us. Now we have the land. You say we have this. Where do we start from, my king? Because time is going. We want to come back. We know children that are saying, I want to come back. We want to know where's the land. Where next topic you'll be showing us the geographical space. How much is this land? How do we get access? Because the next thing we'll be asking you is residence.
Okay. Let's start by saying, let me give now the local experience here in KwaZulu. When it was the advent of the democracy,
Mm,
kings were not invited in a meeting, and the fault was on Mandela. That I want to put on record.
mhm,
And he did invite the kings, but I know it was drilled in his mind by the white people. So they
mhm,
don't invite the kings in a meeting. You know why? Because kings, they know that their land was taken by the whites. So now they are pulling a wool over these young comrades who are firebrand of the struggle. But their struggle, it is neutralized and sanitized and actually left in a form of a vote, as if their fathers were fighting for a vote. Their fathers were fighting for land. So
mhm,
in South Africa, we have an interesting scenario where in 94 till 1998,
mhm,
the South African government instituted a law of Land Claims Act of 1994, which said if you lost your land, they then put a demarcation that from 1913 up till 94, that land can be returned back to you.
hmm. Okay.
Now, the ANC, because they didn't discuss the issue of land with the slave master, the white people, the kings, where they had, because they saw it, because we are learned, it was a judicial implementation that claim your land. Even de Klerk, the last president of South Africa before 94, he told Mandela to say, Mandela, please claim at least 30% of the land of your people so that at least something is returned to create a cosmopolitan society where we can live in peace and harmony, to have a reconciliation. Because we know we took the land by law. And then ANC didn't campaign that the land must be restored because it was no longer their position. In the 1991 conference, they didn't agree on the issue of land because Mandela was having parallel talks with Oppenheimer and Rupert in the Brandhurst estate, talking
Mhm,
the economic part of the negotiations, while Cyril Ramaphosa and Ruth Meyer were discussing the constitutional assembly and the political formations of the state.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when they both finished, Mandela gave an undertaking to the whites that, okay, fine, you will keep the economy, you will keep the land, you will keep all of these. But in their meeting with de Klerk, he did tell him to say there is a legal clause that at least in a transition claim the land. Mandela didn't. But unfortunately, the kings in Transvaal is constituted by 6 provinces. The kings there, they then gathered to say, hey, there is a legal requirement of the settlement, of the struggle, to say we must claim our land. And we are the beneficiaries of that land. And then we had smart minds who went to research. We went to the National Archive and we researched information that was coded in Dutch. We had to translate from Dutch to Afrikaans to English, and we discovered that in all the towns of South Africa, in 9 provinces, it was the land of different tribes of South Africa, and they were removed by law to make way for white settlement in suburbs. So, which means all what you see where whites are staying is where black people were residing.
It's
So, this
it's
land claim
normal.
process is going to. Hello?
Mhm. No, go on.
So this land claim process is gonna reverse the dispossession of 1913, wherein white people will have to vacate and then allow those who won their claims successfully to be given back their land. That's where the devil actually began. The devil was in the detail. Land was claimed, a report came out in 98. 99, Mandela comes out, Mbeki comes in, and Mbeki, instead of implementing the outcomes of the land claims report through the minister, that time Derek Haneko, he is asking a question, who are the real kings? And then he instituted a commission through Judge Nhlapo, who then said, okay, let's see who are the real kings. Presentations were done over many months. And then a report came. They didn't like the report, the politicians, because the report was clearly saying so and so kingdom must be returned. And they realized there is nothing for the white people, which they have already partnered with to say they will defend their interests through the Constitution, Section 25. So you are already starting a war. So a political solution was not solicited. And then a legal solution was solicited. And in 2011, one last man standing, Victor Velapilikuleni, lodged a claim in the court for the return of the capital city of South Africa to the Ndebele people. And he won the claim. Now, if you are advocating for the rule of law and you are law abiding citizens, you need to respect the judgment of the court, which is what the ANC is pursuing and which is the joy of the white people. So white people, they love somebody who is operating according to the rule of law. So we won. As we won, that is when the problems began, because it became clear that these kings have just overcome us again as political parties. And these guys, we didn't include them in the talks. So it means now it's a regime change. But then the duty of the ANC, they have to continuously appease the white people that there will be no land expropriation because it's not the policy of the ANC. How interesting that the liberation movement that was fighting for land is now saying it's not their policy to get back the land for its people. That's a betrayal of the struggle. But anyway, if they are failing, we are here. We know our land. Myself, I have a report of how the Mthethwa land was taken and who is residing in that land. Other white people, I see them every day. But I have a successful report of land claim. All I need is a regime change. So now you need the current order to implement. I know the law. This is how the law works. When there is a judgment in the court of law, you don't complain, you comply. Doesn't matter who you are. And in South Africa, we have an interesting situation where we are told that the constitution is the supreme authority of the land. So it means even if the president does not want to announce the gazetting of this land to be returned to its rightful owners, the court can issue an order to tell the president. But there is a misnomer in South Africa. We claim, I say, it's me, coming from me, we claim we have judicial independence and we have separation of powers where the executive and the judiciary and the legislature are independent of each other and they are following their mandates. But I know for a fact that is not true. I'm a scholar of public management. So I know how untrue is that. The judge, the chief justice, is appointed by the president. So which means there is no independence there. The political wing of governance is appointing the judiciary. So the judge is reporting to the president. And now, if the judge is reporting to the president because you're appointed by the president, you will never execute according to the prescript of the law. You will succumb to the pressure from the president because he will tell you, I appointed you, I will remove you. That's why we have a cagey judiciary that cannot stand up for the people. This judgment was done in 2011. Nobody talks about it. No chief justice is announcing it. No chief justice is instructing the president, but they are busy focusing on lousy issues to say the president has broken the rule of office or the code of office when they've just done mediocre issues. But on fundamentals of the struggle, the chief justice does not summon the president and the president does not implement. We have a judgment. I'm a law student. I know somebody needs to comply. If it cannot be this regime, then it should be the kings who must stand up. So in principle, I am in possession of all the towns and cities of South Africa, and I know which tribe was removed from there. So which means we can call a conference of these tribes and say, your tribe, Susan, was based in such and such a town. Your tribe was based in this town. Your tribe was based in this. So which means what you see in South Africa is actually a front. If you see white people in suburbs, they are sitting at the expense of black people, and black people are confined in the township because by law it was designed that it must be so. But this judgment, the judge who stood up for this, they killed him after he made this judgment. And the recipient of the judgment was also killed. But they thought by killing these two, they are killing the case. The case exists in the annals of case law that a judgment was made in favor of an African. So that renders a restoration of African kingdom through the Roman, Dutch, and British law. So we are within the confines of the law and the prescript of the law to say, give back the land to the kings. Now it's no longer a political statement. It is a judicial statement. So if Britain and France and Portugal, America, whoever that was colonizing us has a duty to comply. If you don't comply, we don't mind. It means there's no honor in Roman, Dutch, and British law. After all, how possible that we ended up having a Roman, Dutch, and British law, yet we call this a black dispensation? So which means we are claiming that we are liberated, but we are using the laws of a white man in the dispensation of a black man. No wonder the beneficiary in the dispensation of the black man are white people who are a minority. So this entire democracy is an insult to our black people, because even when you've got all the facts on the table, you've got the vote on your side, you've got a judgment on your side, you've got a political will on your side, you don't implement. My question, who is your handler? Who am I standing for? Who is voting for you? You are not being voted by the white people, but you are appeasing the white people because the superpowers are having a grip on you because you agreed to them that you would rather suppress your own people continuously to appease the white people. That's why the policy of Oppenheimer says we must take care of the interests of the white people at the expense of black people because we control the economy. If the black government does not want to comply, we switch them, we devalue the rent, automatically the economy collapses. Because the whites are cushioned by all the economic power, they don't get affected. The one who gets affected are the black people. So black people need to wise up on this matter. So it is no longer desirable that we continue with the status quo because it's not good for our business. I'm saying we have won within the confines of Roman, Dutch, and British law. Can we implement that? If you fail to implement that, let's annul the entire Roman, Dutch, and British law and bring native justice system, which is the African kingdoms, where we add our own traditional courts. Because after all, these magisterial district courts in all the cities of South Africa are a remembrance that a traditional court was there and it was removed, and we were imposed a British system that has a not a landlord, my lord, according to the language of the court. You have a my lord in court who is not a landlord, who does not own a land, but is a my lord and is called my lord in a land of another king who is no longer called landlord. How interesting is that? So who are these white people? Who are these magistrates that are sitting in our land? I'm saying this because I remember from the Mthethwas, that's how we lost our land, where there was a white man who was claiming to be resolving our conflict between the two Mthethwa houses, and the arms were shipped through the magisterial court to empower the other faction of the warring faction and to depose the other so that the white men can continue to rule. I know that firsthand from the Mthethwas. So you can't tell me anything about the Roman, Dutch, and British law and their systems. They are as evil as what they are purporting to resolve the conflict. They are part of the problem. So we can do it if we stand up, but I know there are some of us as blacks who are working for the white man. We actually go and tell the white man. But it is not a secret. I'm talking laws here. I'm talking policies here. I'm talking political resolution here. If you respect your craft, stand up and tell me that I'm wrong, and then I'll defend my... That's my story.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
My respect, My Highness.
Yes.
So much respect. Amandla.
Away too.
The Blue Nation. The Amashosa.
Yes.
Whew.
So where we should
So,
start, I think we must do education. We have a learned generation now of Africans. It's no longer like in the past. So let's bring this information into the knowledge of all the students, all the young people, because they need to understand and detox the very education they've studied that it is working against them. And then they must begin to love that which they were taught by the same Western education to hate. Because when a white man hates a king and the kingdom institution, also you, the product of that Western education, you also hate the kings. But when you hate the kings, you are playing in the space of white people because this is not your creation, the system that they are forcing you to embrace. It is their system. So that's why they can instruct a president of a country to do as they please because they gave you those laws. So do something that they cannot and they are not part of. It is the African kingdom. The betrayal part, that is a household internal agenda we will discuss. But to deal with the enemy now, you can't deal with the enemy using his weapons. Currently, the wars in the DRC. My question I can ask you right now, who is producing the arms that are being used to fight in the DRC? Who is producing the bullets that are being used at DRC? Who is producing the army vehicles that are being used in DRC? Who is supplying the oil that is being used in the DRC? Who is supplying the food in that war? Do you know that the Westerners, it is their belief that you take over a country during warring times? So when there is a war in DRC and it is unending, you must know there's a lot of looting of minerals that is going on post the peace process in DRC. You would have lost a lot of minerals who have gone out during the warring time. Those military bases that are there are not just there to give security, they are also there to dig the minerals. So you think that you're dealing with a military soldier, you are also dealing with a geologist who is actually knowing where the minerals are. And who is the beneficiary? Is Antwerp in Belgium, it is in Canada, Japan, in China. All the countries where there is stability, those are the culprits. And Britain uses a system that says we have abolished slavery, but they're using British companies to come in our country and still continue perpetuating the British agenda. Why? They're sipping tea at 11 o'clock every day. And they say we are not part of that war. So let's educate our children. After educating them, let's make them to detox. After detoxing, and let's make them to love that which was once their own. It is an honor that it was an African who was the richest. Can we rekindle that spirit? It is possible. We have seen the descendants of Mansa Musa. We can do it. Do you know that the brother of Mansa Musa went across to Brazil to populate the blacks in Brazil, and the Mansa Musa remained in Mali. So you only know Mansa Musa, but his brother was actually went across the oceans to Brazil and to continue populating those lands. When he ran short of resources, he told his brother to ship more gold, to ship more money, so that he can establish other black nations in the Brazil. But anyway, we have load shedding here at 11 in South
Yes,
African times. I
I'm
think we will
wrapping.
have that. So we must make sure that we wrap up our conversation. We will continue. We cannot finish anything, everything, but this is just a foretaste of what is coming.
I like that. This is just a foretaste of what is coming. Absolute. Thank you. I already was checking regarding the load shed. That's why I was looking all the time, and I know that it's coming closer to your area. And so we keep in touch. We would talk after the conversation in the back office to put the lecture studies that we'll be taking it. And this, according to what Patrick Kasarimi said, this is not a lecture for Channel 1 talking to the audience. This is a lecture actually for the African Spirituality Channel, because exactly this is it. This is it. And we're not going to enter into that kind of lecture of still talking about what we know, but the lecture is purely on the African ancient kingdoms, what you need to learn to be able to unlearn. What does it take? What was land? What was the importance of land? What was the use of land? How did Mansa Musa become the richest? What kind of merchants were he trading on? And that's actually the lecture. And he's going to be joined by other kings, you know, like even the bloodline of the Mansa Musas, because what they're doing is bringing all the kingdoms of Africa together in different types. We also talked about, you know, putting the organization of the traditional healers together. We already saw Mali doing it, and they already have a complex, a huge complex for it, where all the traditional healers would have practice places, and it's going to be like a hospital normally, but for the traditional Africans. I think this is really a lot that is going on coming, and so we would come back to catch up on you. Please, can you just round up? And I know the Queen is also there, right there, and we don't want to keep the Queen waiting, you know.
I think in my rounding up, I would like to say this is the beginning of an end and an end of the beginning. To say we must annul everything that the slave master has done, including the so-called independence of Africa. It was a lie. Please get that through your head. It was a lie. So once you come into grips with that, then you must know that your enemy is the very same people that are purporting to be taking care of you, coming up with all the innovations. We will expose them as we continue here, that who we were and what they were. And then from there on, I would like us to be confident at that which we are talking here. Okay, me, I'm drawing my inspiration from my forebears, King Soil. You will notice that I'm not talking about Kwame Nkrumah, I'm not talking about, because all of that I know to be a front. The United Nations, before it was called United Nations, it was called the League of Nations in 1919. And they promised that there shall be no more wars post 1919 after the First World War I. There were more wars after the League of Nations until they said there's two United Nations. After United Nations in 1945, more wars. You look at Ukraine and Russia. Now I wonder, so much military machines, whom were they being prepared for? Who want to fight who? Surely now you can see that there's something is wrong with all of these arrangements. But also, those who are afraid that you lose the economy, no, you don't have it anyway. Whatever that you think you have lost, you are owning nothing. So Africans, don't be afraid of the, yeah, we lose job. Oh, what job are you talking about? Because not even the presidents of all African countries are owning anything. So I'm not impressed. We will start. I'm trained in public finance, so I know how to create a monetary economy in our terms. We use our minerals as a bearer of value. So I know how values are actually applied. We are living in an era where it's a return of a barter trade in a modern day. So we'll figure out ways. So don't worry about that. Africans are a market. We are a labor. We are everything. So we don't need anything. I don't care how they can dangle a carrot in front of you. We can survive. Have that in your head and be confident. And I'm not drawing the inspiration from all your King Leopold or the German Kaisers or kings of Britain and so on. I'm talking about African kings. And in this case, I'm talking about my lineage because he was the great king and he fathered and groomed the greatest king, also King Shaka. So what more do you need? I've studied the education of the Westerners, but I'm now implementing the African agenda as the continuation of where King Tingsai left off in 1818. It is possible. You speak of African spirituality, the restoration and the reincarnation of the spirit of our forebears is possible. And this time is the agenda of African kingdom. I don't care what the political regime is saying. They have failed because they were set up to fail. Is that simple? I'm in love with my voice. I can talk the whole day. Everything is up to you, down to me, with pleasure, without any pressure. Thank you.
Whew. Yes, I see my Queen Irie clapping, and I can only clap. Thank you so very much, His Imperial Majesty. You're talking on the name of all the kingdoms and the kings, the queens, the children of the entire continent. Thank you. We're
Thank you.
honored to have you. Your
Yes.
children in the diaspora are listening.
Mm.
Your daughters, all
Mm.
of them. For the
Yes.
first time, we're hearing a king that is telling us not to worry.
Mm. Mm. Yes.
We will fix it.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
we've been crying a lot and
Mm.
heartbroken. Your children are sick on the continent in the diaspora.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
We've been looking for solutions. Most of them, we're always having political solutions.
Mm.
And somehow our heartbeat is telling us that's just not correct.
Yes.
Most of the time,
Mm.
we've been thinking that we know the solutions. But Africans are struggling and seeing that these solutions, no matter how hard, is not implementable. For the first
Mm.
time, we know that we can be rest assured
Yes.
that we're going to get back.
Mm.
We're going to go back to a real state of the origins of who we are
Mm.
and just mind our business.
Yes.
Go back to our farms, take care of
Mm.
our families, take care
Mm.
of our children, our girls, our boys, our elders in the community. Unapologetically, we just go back
Yes.
to that
Yes.
we were. So I thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bayet. Bayet.
Gabo. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Whew. I am more than inspired here, Cheryl, please. Oh, thank you, Enes. Thank you, Brother Parker. It's been a while. We missed you here. We already started on Sunday and we're seeing you now for the first time. I was a little bit kind of worried. If you check your box, I text and I like, were you okay? Because all the members of the family were already here and you were not. So I want to thank all of you that connected, even the whole Mthethwa's community in South Africa. All of them were already. watching. They had been calling and just thanking us for hosting their king. And they trust him, they love him. Smart, young, bold, courageous. And it's true blood lineage. And they're so proud of him. His work, like you hear, he speaks. It's not just speaking. So I think we're there. You heard about the piece of land, very huge that we have. If you are ready, like we are ready, even if you're not ready, please save for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months. It's not even that. Just save even the luxury of us. Let us suffer and just get out of it. Save a little bit for your portion of land in KwaZulu-Natal. We'll start there. And every other places that we're going to. Remember, the continent is one, belongs to you. One. Doesn't matter whether you would be settling where or you be going downtown or uptown. Bridges we can swim across. We'll go through it. We'll climb the mountains. And we'll still meet at the corners. Okay? So be rest assured, my heart is just like I said, for the first time. I mean, we're always jongling around, oh, we have to do this, we have to do some kind of business here and this and that. And always our mind was like, this is something is just not adding. But who are the real ones? Even us that speak. Because at the moment we start speaking, before we know it again, we're the one that are always against. Nice politicians, nice policies, nice communication, nice. That's why I love Papa James when he said yesterday, you know what? The only democratic country in the West is Germany. Because they left, they did their mistake, they left and they came back and say, let's build developmental cooperation. Anyways, whatever, once bitten, always. So I look forward that we're going to have these lectures with this king so that we can begin to remember. I love his first presentation when he was describing, how they came from the 1800s. Oh my, that is what we call poetry. That is poetry. That is storytelling. That is theater. That is book writing. That is exactly how the kingdoms were. The narrations, the choice of words. You could see everything in your eyes. That's the spirit. That's AS, African spirituality. You don't need us to describe it anymore or anything. I think people are still thinking it's going to be a place where we'll go and gather somewhere. There'll be an altar and then there'll be somebody telling us, and then there'll be somebody telling, okay, this is our own book. We have to study like that. That's not African spirituality. It's just exactly. It's Ubuntu. I do it to you because I depend on you. You depend on me. I want to thank all the queens of Amashola, the Blue Nations. Yeah. I mean, we had that thing. We had that thing when we connected. And these are all the descendants of the Abantu, of the Bantu tribes. And I can never say it louder that these Bantu tribes had their origins from Cameroon. And they migrated. So we're going to get into all these things. What were we before the kingdoms? How do we relate to the Ethiopian kingdoms? Which were these kingdoms? How were they set up? What was their religious beliefs and their customs? And then we come down to all the different kingdoms. So at some point, it is not a lie that we were a continent of different, they just changed the language, 54 countries. So, but when we will go deeper, we're going to see we were a continent of different tribes, major tribes, and most of the tribes now relocated through migration. Migration is not a new policy today. It's just that they politicize migration just like every other thing, and then we begin to see everything is a problem. Migration has begun from time immemorial. And most of our migration, exactly even to today, is done on the continent of Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, us. Okay, so these are the things that we'll know. And I think this is the age for us to learn, to research. And now, when we finish the stage, then we start doing business because we know who we are. Right now, we're still too early to do business. That's why business topics, it is good, but Yes, Blue Nation under the guides of Imboni. We haven't touched that one. Okay. We haven't even touched that one, but while you know it, we've not even touched that name. We've not even touched it. Because that one is going to be something else. Yes, my brother CNS is say Bana Cameroon, all the origins of the Bantu people. Now you see them in the Luos of Kenya are the Bantu origins. They are in Uganda, they're in South Africa, in the different kingdoms. They're in part of the Western. I mean, like, it's not the biggest tribe. We know who the biggest tribes are on the continent, but this is the second largest tribes with those origins from there. I think when we get the connection of our tribes and how we went, it will be so simple for us to understand that we are one. Just as simple as that. If we understand the different tribes, the formation of the tribes, then you just know that we're one. But even though we had different origins, so you'll be asking yourself, you look at the Ethiopian, you look at the Kemishan, the South, and you put the Sri Lankas, the Daka ones. History cannot lie. No matter how we try to torment, change, put here, this is at the end of the day, truth is truth. I don't know whether truth has a color. I'm really, really excited that we're beginning to have this kind of knowledge, that we're beginning to have know, that we're beginning to excel. We're rising and getting there. And we're cool with it. And I love you here, my community. I love you just so much. Why? This attitude of just listening is what kills me with you, this community. And particularly, I know Cheryl is saying the same thing. Reparations is saying the same. All of us are saying the same thing. Papa Cheesy, welcome. Just welcome you. You know, that attitude of us just listen and learn without questioning. Particularly, you always sniffing the first guest. I mean, I was at some point when I was smiling, I was just smiling at the family that I have here. Like, they're trying to test the waters. Who is this? How is he talking? Until I see Sharon and all of you, you start now to relax and like, oh, yes, he's pouring. But we test the waters because we are made of it, substance that flows in us. When the truth hits us, we know. We know. When the truth hits us, we know it. Professor James had said it one time. The revolution started with the market women of Cameroon, downtown Limbe. We're still going to dig to that because I also have we connecting all the royals, indigenous, the bloodline of the resistance. And they'll be telling us the way it is. Don't miss it. Do not ever say, I didn't know. You know where to get your source of information. You know where it's correct. You know where the truth is. Now we know. We don't believe anything. Yes, we've been going around trying to sniff which one. Our young people are rising. Whether they're going to be doing politics like ACUP, we're going to guard them. They'll go on the right track. Powerful kings and queens that are rising in this vibration, in this energy, and that would make it right. But another thing that we are also going to get engaged is because this Africa is mother of the whole humanity. Are we only at some point in time just only going to talk about the particular group of Africans? Or actually, African will be taking the role of mediating world peace? Just a thought, okay? At some point, we're going to rise to a level where we now feel responsible for the world. So if something would be happening any place on earth, it will be the responsibility of the mother, the continent, to say, hey, stop fighting. So that mediation of peace doesn't just end among us on the tribes of Africa. That a facilitation of bringing a correcting the whole mistakes, as I can say, would have to start with a people that takes responsibility. And if you were called the first child, I'm sorry, it's your responsibility. Doesn't matter what excuses we're making here. Doesn't matter what excuses we'll be making here. At some point, the first child, the mother, would have to take control to fix it all. Doesn't matter whether your children are going to be purple, blue, white, black, what. At some point, it's going to come to that balance that we're in now to say, hey, we just leave our tenure and we metamorphose and meet the order in peace. Just drink our water, okay? So thank you very much. Tomorrow, we didn't intend to have a show. We wanted to take a break. Not taking a break. Of course, we've taken so much break. But we wanted to get into a space where we're restructuring right now, as you know, creating the channels. Where do we put what and stuff like that? Everything is good. Everything is working well. We have support, background support, moral support, financial support, and people are still coming in. And those that are still asking, if you're one of them, you know how to get us to ask, how can you help? And we'll put you on the channels to help, okay? What you can do. So thank you, my people, my family. We got to go now and we see ourselves tomorrow, okay? I love you. And you know it. We know it all the time. All. That's the wife of the continent speaking right here. And the mother of the continent. All right. Thank you so much, guys. We see us. You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa.